Look at this. Sea turtle nests plundered, pristine wetlands turned into muddy craters, and ancient oak roots completely hollowed out overnight. It is not a hurricane. It is not a wildfire. It is a phantom that has been multiplying since the 16th century, and right now it is winning a war against the most technologically advanced nation on Earth. My grandfather farmed this Texas soil for 50 years, and he always said, "When the forest goes silent, you run." Well, the woods are dead quiet tonight. If you want to uncover how this multi-billion-dollar ecological nightmare is unfolding, and the prehistoric beast waiting in the shadows to stop it, hit that subscribe button right now. Do not miss what is coming next, because the American wilderness will never be the same. Forget everything you think you know about those gentle pink pigs down on the family farm. What is stalking the American wilderness right now is a completely different beast. Meet Sus scrofa, the wild boar, an animal that biologists consider one of the most perfect biological invaders evolution has ever produced. When you look into the eyes of a wild hog, you are not looking at livestock. You are looking at an armored survival machine. They have thick, cartilaginous shields across their shoulders that can literally stop a small-caliber bullet, razor-sharp tusks that sharpen themselves every time they open and close their jaws, and a snout built like a hydraulic shovel. These creatures were never meant to be here, yet they have mastered our landscape better than the native wildlife that spent millions of years evolving for it. To understand how we reached this point of crisis, we have to rewind the clock back to the 16th century. When Spanish explorers stepped onto North American shores, they brought domestic swine with them as a walking pantry. Some of those animals escaped into the wild, adapted to the harsh forests and swamps, and began a quiet conquest that has lasted for over 400 years. Today, that slow burn has exploded into a full-blown wildfire. From the murky bayous of Louisiana and the endless brush of Texas, all the way up to the colder northern states, these invaders have established a stronghold in 35 different states. Biologists estimate there are now between 6 and 9 million wild hogs roaming free across the nation, and their territory is expanding every single day. This invasion is not just an American phenomenon, as invasive species are changing ecosystems all across the globe. Where are you watching this video from? Please tell us your country or city in the comments, and let's explore together. The real reason this invasion feels so unstoppable comes down to simple, terrifying math. Wild hogs possess a reproductive superpower that defies the laws of population control. A single female hog can reach sexual maturity at just 6 months old and can produce 2 litters of piglets every single year, with an average of 6 to 8 piglets per litter. Under the right conditions, a local hog population can literally double its numbers in just 120 days. If you remove even 50% of a herd from a property, the remaining hogs will bounce back and replace those lost numbers before the year is even over. They are outbreeding our ability to hunt them, and they are doing it with ruthless efficiency. Once a sounder of hogs moves into an area, the ecological destruction is swift and absolute. These animals are opportunistic omnivores, meaning they will eat virtually anything they can get their jaws around. They act like vacuum cleaners across the forest floor, systematically stripping the land of resources that native species desperately need to survive. They actively hunt down and consume the eggs of ground-nesting birds like the bobwhite quail, and along our southern coastlines, they dig up and devour endangered sea turtle nests before the hatchlings ever see the ocean. Watch a drone fly over a Georgia forest or a Texas pasture after a hog herd has moved through, and the ground looks like it was hit by a carpet bombing raid. They overturn millions of tons of soil every year, destroying native plant roots, polluting freshwater streams with sediment, and triggering massive erosion that ruins the land for decades. The cost of this feeding frenzy is staggering. American farmers and ranchers are on the front lines of a nightmare, waking up to find entire fields of corn, soybeans, peanuts, and sorghum completely leveled overnight. The national price tag for this agricultural and environmental vandalism has now surpassed $2.1 billion every single year, and that bill is only getting higher. But perhaps the most heartbreaking damage cannot be measured in dollars and cents. These wild hogs have no regard for what is sacred. In their endless search for roots and grubs, they are routinely tearing through Native American burial grounds, historic cemeteries, and centuries-old archaeological sites, literally destroying irreplaceable pieces of human history just to grab a quick meal. They are smarter than dogs, tougher than wolves, and multiplying faster than we can pull the trigger. We are dealing with an apex invader that has completely outsmarted us on land. So, how do we fight back against an invader that reproduces faster than cell division and tears up everything in its path? Well, we did what America does best. We turned it into a war zone, deploying the kind of heavy military-grade tech you would expect to see in a high-stakes tactical operation. This is not just hunting anymore. It has evolved into a high-tech, multi-million-dollar war of attrition. Farmers, wildlife agencies, and private contractors have teamed up, throwing everything in our technological arsenal at these animals, hoping to finally turn the tide. If you head down to Texas, you will witness the most extreme front of this battle: aerial gunning. Imagine standing in an open field, hearing the distant, heavy chop of a helicopter blades cutting through the humid air. Suddenly, a low-flying chopper screams over the tree line, banking hard just feet above the canopy. Inside, professional marksmen are strapped into the open doors, clutching semi-automatic rifles. Below them, a sounder of 30 wild hogs breaks from the brush, scattering across the open dirt in sheer panic. The guns start barking, brass casings rain down into the mud, and for a few chaotic minutes, it looks like humanity is finally winning. It is loud, intense, and looks incredibly effective. And when the sun goes down, the war just shifts to a different frequency. Operators launch thermal imaging drones high into the midnight sky. Looking at the operator screens, the pitch-black forest below turns into a glowing map of heat signatures. You can see the cold blue outlines of the trees, and then, suddenly, a cluster of bright, blazing white spots moving through the undergrowth like a ghost fleet. These thermal eyes in the sky guide ground teams directly to the herds, stripping away the cover of darkness that the hogs have relied on for centuries. At the same exact time, miles away, a landowner is sitting in his living room, staring at his smartphone. He is monitoring a MINE trapping system, a massive circular steel enclosure set up deep in the woods. Hogs are incredibly suspicious of new structures, so the trap has been left open for days, filled with corn, letting them get comfortable. On the phone screen, via a live satellite camera feed, one hog enters, then another, and soon, the entire family herd of 20 is inside, greedily feeding. The landowner taps a single red button on his touchscreen. Instantly, a massive steel drop gate slams shut with a deafening metallic crash that echoes through the quiet forest. The hogs are trapped, completely frantic, slamming their heavy bodies against the iron bars. It feels like we have won, right? With helicopters, thermal drones, and satellite-activated traps, we should have wiped them out by now. But here is the cold, hard truth that will make your stomach drop. We are losing. We are losing badly. When you crunch the actual biological data, the reality of this war is absolutely devastating. Wildlife biologists have run the numbers, and the math is completely unforgiving. To simply keep the wild hog population from growing, to just freeze their numbers exactly where they are today, we have to systematically hunt down and destroy 66 to 70% of the entire national population every single year. Let that sink in for a second. We have to wipe out nearly 750,000 of animals every 12 months just to stay in the exact same place. And what are we actually achieving with all our helicopters, high-tech traps, and night vision gear? We are barely scraping 29%. All of our expensive technology, all of our spent ammunition, And all of our tactical planning are not even meeting half of the bare minimum required to stop their advance. While we celebrate catching 20 hogs in a high-tech trap, 50 more are being born in the next county over. The wild hogs have adapted to our war tactics. They are learning to recognize the sound of helicopter rotors, retreating deep into the thickest briar patches where shooters cannot get a clean angle. They are learning to avoid the bait inside our traps, passing the knowledge down to their young. We are spending millions of dollars, pouring endless sweat and blood into the soil, and yet the phantom in the swamp keeps marching forward, conquering more territory every single day. Right when we are on the verge of total frustration, realizing that human technology has met its match, we have to look away from our machines. Because deep in the quiet, unforgiving swamps of Louisiana, where our helicopters cannot fly and our drones cannot see, a prehistoric force is waiting in the dark, ready to do what we cannot. To understand how we might finally win this war, we have to step away from our expensive machines, shut off the roaring helicopter engines, and leave the high-tech command centers behind. We need to go where the concrete roads end and the black waters begin. Let us travel deep into the heart of the Louisiana bayou, where the air is thick with humidity, and the silence is so heavy you can hear your own heartbeat. Out here, the high-tech gadgets of the modern world feel completely useless. The endless maze of cypress trees and Spanish moss creates a natural fortress, a place where humans are just temporary visitors. But this misty wilderness is not empty. While we have been busy failing with our million-dollar military technology, the natural world has been quietly preparing its own response. The transition is stark. One moment you are looking at a sleek, vibrating helicopter dashboard, and the next, you are staring at a completely motionless patch of dark green duckweed on the water surface. The swamp looks totally empty, almost peaceful. But then, if you watch closely, the water ripples just a fraction of an inch. Two ancient, cold, yellow-amber eyes slowly break through the dark surface without making a single sound. Below those eyes lies a massive, armored body, perfectly camouflaged to look exactly like a rotting cypress log. This is the American alligator. This creature does not need GPS. It does not need satellite-activated cages, and it certainly does not care about our budgets. It has survived multiple ice ages, witnessed the rise and fall of the dinosaurs, and perfected the art of the ambush over 80 million years of evolution. For a long time, people thought these prehistoric reptiles were just lazy, opportunistic feeders that only snapped at passing fish, turtles, or the occasional small mammal. But as the wild hog population began spilling out of the forests and invading the wet edges of the swamps, something fascinating started to happen. Nature began to rewrite the rules of engagement. Biologists working in the coastal marshes started noticing a strange pattern, prompting them to look closer at what these giant reptiles were actually eating. They collected stomach samples and ran advanced DNA tests on the contents. What they discovered shook the scientific community and completely changed how we view the hog crisis. The laboratory results were undeniable. When researchers analyzed the digestive tracts of large alligators, they did not just find fish scales and crab shells. Instead, the data revealed a massive presence of mammal hair, bone fragments, and heavy hoof material. The genetic markers pointed directly to one culprit, Sus scrofa, the wild boar. In some coastal marsh areas, wild hogs had actually become the primary source of protein for large adult alligators. These reptiles were not just eating the occasional piglet by accident, they were actively, systematically targeting them. This is where the entire narrative shifts. It turns out that while we have been struggling to recruit enough human hunters, we have had a highly trained biological army waiting in the water this entire time. The alligator is uniquely equipped to handle a beast as tough as a wild hog. A mature hog has thick skin, sharp tusks, and a nasty attitude, making it a dangerous target for almost any land predator. But in the water, those advantages completely evaporate. To an alligator, a hog swimming across a bayou or drinking at the muddy edge is just a loud, clumsy package of fat and muscle. The alligator possesses a bite force of over 2,000 pounds per square inch, easily enough to crush the thickest bones. Once those jaws lock onto a hog, the struggle is practically over, dragged down into the dark water where the rules of the land no longer apply. This discovery brings a flicker of genuine hope to a situation that felt completely desperate just a moment ago. It reminds us that no matter how chaotic an ecological disaster seems, nature always strives toward equilibrium. When an invasive species floods an ecosystem, the local predators eventually learn to adapt, turning the invaders into a new resource. The alligator is not acting out of patriotism, and it is not trying to save American agriculture. It is simply doing what it has always done, surviving by consuming whatever is abundant. As the hog numbers grew, the alligators simply looked at the shoreline and saw an endless, free buffet. But this relationship is far from simple. And as we look closer at this battle of titans, we realize this is not a one-sided slaughter. It is a brutal, chaotic, and deeply personal war between two of the toughest creatures on the continent. This is where the quiet tension of the swamp shatters into pure, unadulterated violence. To understand how brutal this struggle really is, you have to picture the scene at the water edge. A large sounder of wild hogs, led by a massive, aggressive sow, cautiously emerges from the thick brush. The piglets are squealing, and the larger hogs are grunting, their heavy hooves sinking into the soft black mud. They are incredibly thirsty after a long day of foraging in the hot sun. They slowly line up along the bank, lowering their heads to drink, completely unaware of the threat lingering just inches below the dark water. Underneath that murky surface, a 12-foot alligator has been tracking them for over an hour. It moves with a terrifying, ghost-like precision. No splashing, no ripples, not even a single bubble rises to betray its presence. It positions itself right beneath the shadow of a fallen cypress branch. The alligator waits until the largest hog takes one step too close to the drop-off. Suddenly, the water does not just splash, it literally explodes. In a fraction of a second, the alligator launches its massive body forward, its jaws gaping wide. The sound is like a thunderclap in the quiet swamp. Those powerful jaws snap shut with bone-crushing force right around the neck of a 150-pound hog. The rest of the herd panics, squealing in terror as they scatter back into the brush, their hooves kicking up mud. The mother sow charges toward the water, snapping her jaws and letting out a deep, guttural roar of defiance. But it is already too late. The alligator shifts its massive body weight, dragging the thrashing hog backward into the deep channel. It initiates the legendary death roll, spinning its body rapidly underwater to disorient the prey and break its resistance. The struggle is violent, muddy, and brief. Within seconds, the surface of the bayou settles back into a calm, glassy silence, leaving only a trail of bubbles and a red tint in the dark water. But do not make the mistake of thinking this is a one-way street. These wild hogs are not just helpless victims waiting to be eaten. They are ruthless, intelligent, and highly vengeful. In fact, they have launched a devastating counteroffensive against the very creatures that hunt them. During the hot summer months, female alligators painstakingly build large nests of mud, peat, and rotting vegetation along the marsh banks to protect their eggs. It is a grueling process, and the mother alligator will guard that nest fiercely. But she cannot be there every second of the day. She must occasionally slide back into the water to cool her body or hunt. That is when the hogs strike. An adult hog has a sense of smell so sharp it can detect a buried egg from miles away. When a sounder of hogs finds an unguarded alligator nest, the scene turns into absolute carnage. They use their rock-hard snouts to rip the nest apart, scattering the protective vegetation everywhere. They dig up the leathery white eggs, crushing them between their flat teeth and greedily swallowing the half-formed hatchlings inside. A single family of hogs can wipe out an entire generation of future apex predators in less than 20 minutes. They are literally eating the future of their only natural enemy. It is a brutal circular war where the predator eats the adult and the prey devours the babies. Faced with this chaotic ecological breakdown, desperate humans have tried to intervene with extreme measures. Scientists in laboratories have been actively testing a chemical weapon called sodium nitrite. It is a common meat preservative, but in high doses, it stops oxygen from reaching the vital organs of hogs, effectively putting them to sleep permanently. On paper, it sounds like the ultimate silver bullet, but the reality of deploying poison in the wild is terrifying. The swamp is not a sterile lab. If you leave poisoned bait out for hogs, you cannot control who eats it. A curious black bear, a wandering raccoon, or an endangered bald eagle feeding on a poisoned hog carcass could easily ingest the toxin. We risk wiping out our own precious native wildlife in a clumsy attempt to play God. When you look at the risks of our chemical experiments, you realize that human technology is still too blunt of an instrument for a problem this complex. The natural world has spent millions of years perfecting its own checks and balances. We do not need to dump dangerous chemicals into our soils. We just need to step back and let the ancient armored guardians of the swamp do the job they were born to do. This billion-dollar war won't end with a grand victory or a signed peace treaty. It is a slow, relentless tug-of-war. But places like Cameron Parish and Street, Catherine's Island prove that when we protect our native predators, nature heals itself. The real lesson here? We cannot always engineer our way out of the messes we create. Sometimes, we just have to trust the wild to find its own balance. Every hog removed is not just a statistic, it is a lifeline for a sea turtle, a bobwhite quail, and the soul of the American wilderness. What do you think is the best way to handle this crisis? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that subscribe button to join our journey, and I will see you all in the next video. To an American, land is never just dirt. It is the sweat of our grandfathers, the soil that raised us, and the very ground where the American dream takes root. Look at old Hank out there on his Texas ranch, walking hand in hand with his grandson as the morning sun paints the pastures in pure gold. It looks like paradise, a heritage passed down through generations. But don't let the quiet sunrise fool you, because when the sun goes down, this piece is being ripped apart by a ruthless enemy. Suddenly, that beautiful pasture is turned into a war zone. Deep, ugly trenches gouged into the earth, streams choked with thick mud, and right there, the lifeless body of a native white-tailed fawn, left in a fouled puddle. This is not just wildlife being wild. This is a multi-million-dollar ecological train wreck driven by an army of biological bulldozers. Wild hogs. They are staging a silent invasion, and if we do not act now, our children will have nothing left to inherit. Hit that subscribe button right now, because we are breaking down the biggest threat to our American heritage and how we can take our land back. We are not just dealing with a few stray animals wandering onto our property. This is a highly organized biological occupation that is costing American taxpayers and farmers a staggering $1.5 billion every single year. Let that number sink in for a moment. This is a massive financial drain hitting our rural communities right where it hurts. Ask any rancher from Texas to Georgia, and they will tell you the same horror story. You wake up, step onto your porch, and look out at a field that took you months of hard labor and thousands of dollars to plant, only to find it completely ruined. These beasts don't just graze, they destroy. They use their rock-hard snouts like iron shovels, digging deep into the earth to rip up expensive underground irrigation lines, leaving fields flooded and water systems wrecked. They tear through the roots of ancient oak trees that have stood for centuries, killing them from the inside out. And if you are running a modern farm, their path of destruction gets even worse. The massive, deep craters they leave behind are hidden hazards. A farmer drives his combines or tractors over what looks like flat grass, only to hit one of these trenches, shattering expensive blades and breaking axles, putting operations to a grinding halt during the most critical harvest days. Worst of all, they are predators. When food gets scarce, wild hogs target the most vulnerable part of a rancher's livelihood. They hunt down newborn livestock, killing defenseless lambs and baby calves straight out of the pasture. It is a brutal, heartbreaking reality that our farmers have to face completely alone. By the way, before we dive into how these creatures became so unstoppable, where are you watching this video from? Please tell us your country or city in the comments, and let's explore together. Now, how did we get here? How did an invasive species manage to completely outsmart and outmaneuver us across the continent? The answer lies in their terrifying biological design. They are, without a doubt, the ultimate survival monsters. First, look at their reproductive rate, which defies everything we know about large mammals. A young female, wild hog, or a sow can reach breeding age at just 6 months old. Think about that. Before they are even fully grown, they are already bringing new litters into the world. Their gestation period is a clockwork nightmare of 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days. They can easily produce 2 litters every single year, with each litter averaging anywhere from 6 to 12 piglets. This means a single breeding pair can spark an exponential population explosion, turning into hundreds of descendants in just a few short years. On top of that, they are master adapters. They don't care about our borders, our climates, or our weather patterns. Down south in the scorching heat of the Texas brush country, they can survive for days with barely any water. Up north, where the winter winds howl and the snow piles feet deep, they simply grow a thick layer of fat and dense hair, building insulated snow caves to shield their young. They have conquered the wetlands, the forests, and the mountains. And lately, they are getting bolder. They are moving right into our backyards, pushing deep into the suburban neighborhoods of major cities like Houston and Atlanta, tipping over trash cans, destroying manicured golf courses, and wandering across busy highways. But as bad as the physical and financial damage is, there is an even darker, invisible threat lurking inside this invasion. These animals are walking biohazards, carrying over 30 different types of viral and bacterial diseases, along with dozens of parasites. They constantly contaminate local water sources where our beef cattle drink, spreading dangerous bacteria like brucellosis. This disease causes severe, contagious abortions in cattle herds, wiping out entire generations of livestock and threatening the safety of our food supply. Even worse, brucellosis can jump directly to humans, causing chronic, debilitating waves of fever that can last for years. And then there is the ultimate doomsday scenario that keeps every agricultural official in Washington awake at night: African swine fever. While this devastating virus has not fully taken root here yet, wild hogs are the perfect vectors to spread it like wildfire. If African swine fever hits our domestic pig farms through these wild populations, it will instantly shut down the entire multi-billion-dollar American pork export industry. Our trade partners will close their borders to us overnight, farms will go bankrupt, and our grocery stores will see unprecedented supply shocks. This is no longer just a minor nuisance for a few isolated landowners. This is a full-blown national security crisis threatening our economy, our health, and the very future of our American food independence. To truly understand what we are up against, we have to stop thinking of these animals as dumb farm pigs. If you underestimate them, you have already lost the war. What we are actually dealing with is a highly intelligent, fiercely adaptable adversary that is outsmarting us at almost every turn. Wildlife biologists will tell you that a wild hog possesses the cognitive capability of a 3-year-old human child. easily matching or even exceeding the problem-solving intelligence of a top-tier border collie. They are not just running on pure instinct. They observe, they analyze, and they learn from our mistakes. If you set a traditional box trap and manage to capture a few piglets while the older sow watches from the brush, you have just educated the entire sounder. That mature female will memorize the shape, the scent, and the sound of that trap. She will teach her remaining young to avoid it at all costs, and they will never step foot inside a similar structure for the rest of their lives. Landowners have shared unbelievable stories of wild hogs working together to beat human engineering. They will use their massive, powerful snouts to carefully lift wooden release levers, wedging branches or rocks under the heavy gates to completely deactivate basic trigger mechanisms. They know exactly how to eat the bait right up to the tripwire line, grabbing the food and backing out safely without ever setting off the trap. It is a psychological chess match happening right in our timberlands and pastures, and right now, the hogs are playing a few moves ahead of us. Have you ever witnessed this kind of shocking animal intelligence on your own land? Or maybe dealt with a pest that seemed to outsmart every trap you set? Let me know your stories in the comments below, because what these hogs are doing next is even more mind-blowing. As if their raw intelligence were not enough, humans have inadvertently forced these creatures to unlock a whole new survival mechanism. Historically, wild hogs were diurnal creatures, meaning they naturally moved around, socialized, and foraged during the bright daylight hours. But decades of intense recreational hunting, chasing them with hounds, and targeting them from trucks have triggered a massive behavioral evolution. To survive our pressure, they have completely rewritten their biological clocks and turned into strictly nocturnal ghosts. They now spend the daylight hours deeply entrenched in the thickest, most impenetrable cedar breaks and swamps where no human or dog can easily reach them. The moment darkness swallows the landscape, they come alive. They do not need flashlights or night vision goggles like we do. A wild hog can navigate through pitch-black forests with absolute precision, relying on a sense of smell that is roughly 10 times more powerful than a domestic dog. They can detect the scent of buried acorns or underground tubers through feet of dense soil from a quarter-mile away. By turning into creatures of the night, they have effectively neutralized our most common defense methods, turning the vast American countryside into their personal nighttime buffet while we are fast asleep in our beds. To understand the real human cost of this nightly warfare, you only need to speak with the folks who live on the front lines. Consider the heartbreaking reality faced by a third-generation farmer named Miller, a 70-year-old man who has dedicated his entire life to tending his land in rural Texas. Not too long ago, Mr. Miller woke up at 5 in the morning, grabbed his coffee, and stepped out to check on his 40 acres of prime peanut fields. This was not just a regular crop. This specific harvest was the family financial safety net, meticulously planned and planted to pay for his oldest grandson's upcoming college tuition. But as he walked out to the field, his heart sank into his stomach. The entire 40 acres had been completely wiped off the map. In less than 8 hours, a massive sounder of over 50 hogs had swept through like an organized demolition crew. The earth was rolled over, the valuable peanut plants were shredded, and the irrigation lines were ripped to pieces. Mr. Miller said it looked exactly like a fleet of heavy bulldozers had driven back and forth across his property all night long. The entire year of hard work, the financial security for his family, and the dreams for his grandson's future were completely erased in a single night of lawless destruction. This is the devastating reality of the invasion. It is a brutal reminder that we are locked in a relentless battle of wits, with a phantom enemy that does not sleep, does not respect our property lines, and will not stop until we find a smarter way to fight back. Now, for generations, our gut reaction to any pest problem in the American countryside has been pretty straightforward. You see a predator or a destructive animal on your property, you walk out to the barn, grab your trusty rifle, and you go hunting. It is a tradition passed down from fathers to sons, And for a lot of folks watching this, especially those who grew up hunting deer or managing property, it seems like the most logical solution. You think to yourself, if there are wild hogs tearing up the back pasture, the answer is to grab some buddies, lease out the land to weekend hunters, or let the dogs loose to thin out the herd. It feels like you are taking control and doing right by the land. But this is exactly where we have to stop and look at the cold, hard science, because what worked for deer or coyotes is completely backfiring when it comes to wild hogs. The harsh reality that wildlife biologists are trying to get us to understand is something called the recreational hunting paradox. Study after study shows that traditional sports hunting only removes about 10 to 15% of a local wild hog population each year. That might sound like a decent dent, until you realize that to just keep a wild hog population flat, to stop it from growing by even a single animal, you have to eradicate at least 70 to 80% of the entire population, every single year. When you pull the trigger and drop 1 or 2 hogs out of a group, you are not solving the problem. You are actually making it worse. And it all comes down to a fascinating and terrifying biological defense mechanism inside these creatures. When humans apply hunting pressure to a sounder, it triggers a powerful reverse biological reaction. When a few members of a herd are killed, the surviving hogs instantly go into emergency survival mode. The mature sows experience a massive hormonal spike caused by the sudden stress on the group. Their bodies respond by accelerating their reproductive cycles. Sows that would normally breed later in the season begin ovulating months ahead of schedule. Even worse, their bodies adjust to maximize the survival of the species, meaning their next litters will be significantly larger, often jumping from a normal 6 piglets up to 10 or 12. The hogs are literally outbreeding our bullets. By killing just a small fraction of the herd, we are inadvertently sending a signal to the survivors to repopulate the area at an explosive, frantic pace. But the biological backlash is only half the story. The physical chaos caused by traditional hunting methods creates a massive logistical nightmare for the entire surrounding county. Imagine a group of weekend hunters driving onto a piece of land with a pack of baying hounds and high-powered rifles. They spot a sounder of 20 hogs feeding near a creek bed. The guns go off, the dogs charge, and maybe they manage to harvest 2 or 3 hogs. What happens to the other 17? They completely scatter in absolute terror. That unified, structured family group is instantly shattered. Instead of staying together where they could potentially be managed, those terrified, surviving hogs split up into broken, smaller groups and run for their lives. The deafening roar of gunshots and the scent of hunting dogs push them miles away from their original territory, driving them straight onto neighboring properties, pristine timberlands, and state parks that had never seen a wild hog before. These newly displaced, highly stressed animals carry their devastating diseases and destructive habits into completely untouched ecosystems. The lone, young females that ran for cover will quickly find a new patch of woods, breed with any roaming male, and establish brand new kingdoms of their own. Within a matter of months, a single poorly planned hunting trip can transform one concentrated pest problem into 5 separate, exploding infestations across an entire county. We have to face the music. Our old-school, rugged individualist approach to hunting is not a solution. It is a highly effective dispersal mechanism for the enemy, and it is time we trade our old habits for a much smarter, unified strategy. If we want to win this war and protect our land for the next generation, we have to stop playing checkers while these animals are playing chess. We need to put away the random weekend shootouts and adopt a high-tech, scientific strategy. Top agricultural universities like Texas A&M have thrown their full research weight behind a game-changing concept known as whole sounder removal. The core principle here is simple but absolute. You do not leave a single animal behind, not one. If you let even one smart sow escape, She will use her trauma to educate future litters, scatter to new lands, and trigger that explosive reproductive backlash we just talked about. We are talking about an all-or-nothing tactical operation, and thanks to cutting-edge technology, we finally have the upper hand. This modern arsenal relies on a powerful trio of advanced tools that turn the tables on these nocturnal phantoms. It all starts in the night sky with high-resolution thermal drones. These advanced aircraft glide silently hundreds of feet above the tree line, completely undetected by the hogs below. Operating in pitch-black darkness, their thermal sensors scan the landscape, mapping out heat signatures with crystal clarity. On a handheld monitor, a land manager can see right through dense brush and pinpoint an entire sounder, counting exactly how many adult sows, boars, and piglets are moving across the property. No more guessing games, and no more surprises. We now have an eye in the sky telling us exactly what we are up against. But knowing where they are is only half the battle. The real magic happens on the ground with a new generation of smart corral traps, like the revolutionary pig brig system. Forget those old-school heavy steel box traps that slam shut with a deafening clang, scaring half the herd away. These modern traps use a massive, heavy-duty nylon netting suspended in a wide circle. The hogs walk right underneath it to eat the bait, completely unbothered. Live streaming cameras equipped with artificial intelligence watch the trap 24/7, sending a crisp video feed straight to a landowner's smartphone. The farmer can sit in his living room, miles away, watching the hogs filter into the circle. He waits patiently until the AI camera confirms that 100% of the sounder is inside the perimeter. With a single tap on a smartphone screen, the electronic drop mechanism triggers, and the heavy netting collapses instantly. Because it is a soft, flexible net rather than rigid iron bars, the captured hogs do not panic and injure themselves trying to bust through. They remain relatively calm and contained, ensuring the entire family group is trapped together without a single runner escaping to warn the others. Now, I want to pause for a second and ask you a quick question. With all this wild technology entering the agricultural world, from automated tractors to AI cameras, how do you feel about using high-tech gear on traditional American farmland? Do you think tech is the ultimate savior for our rural communities, or do you prefer the old-school ways? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this next method sounds straight out of a spy movie. When a sounder manages to retreat deep into the most impenetrable swamps or dense public forests where even drones cannot easily map them, biologists deploy their ultimate secret weapon, a technique known as the Judas pig. Experts will capture a single, live, wild hog from an area and safely fit it with a lightweight, high-tech GPS tracking collar. Now, because hogs are profoundly social animals that absolutely despise being alone, they have a deep-rooted psychological drive to seek out a herd. Once the biologists release this collared hog back into the wild, it does not run away. It immediately goes looking for company. It treks deep into the wilderness, sniffing out hidden trails, and eventually joins up with a brand new, undocumented sounder hiding in the deepest shadows. Unknowingly, this Judas pig broadcasts its exact coordinates straight to satellite networks. Biologists and land managers can track the signal on their computers, walking right up to the secret fortress of the enemy. By using the hog's own social instincts against it, we can systematically eliminate hidden populations that would otherwise remain completely invisible. This is the new frontier of land management. It is smart, it is relentless, and it gives our farmers the peace of mind they haven't felt in decades. At the end of the day, this fight teaches us a powerful life lesson. Some burdens are just too heavy to carry alone. We cannot win this as lone wolves anymore. It takes a community. We need our local governments providing the tech, scientists guiding the strategy, and neighbors joining hands to create an unbreakable safety zone across our county lines. This beautiful American land has sustained us for generations, and now it is our turn to protect it. Let us stop the random hunting that scatters the enemy and start working together. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button and help us preserve our heritage. See you all in the next video. Dawn breaks over the rolling hills of Florida, painting the orange groves in a warm, golden light that has blessed this soil for 3 generations. This isn't just land, it's a living legacy, built with 30 years of calloused hands, broken backs, and the quiet prayers of a family. For Frank Miller, these trees paid for college tuition and held the promise of a peaceful retirement. But beneath the beautiful morning mist lies a devastating reality. In less than 8 hours, a silent, invisible army turned this paradise into a war zone, leaving decades of hard work shattered in the mud. Over $2 billion in damage is inflicted across American farms every single year, and the destruction is accelerating. We fought back with rifles, helicopters, and high-voltage grids, yet we are losing ground. How does an empire fail against an animal? Because we aren't fighting beasts, we are tracking a ghost with an intellect. If you want to discover how American farmers are finally fighting smart to reclaim their heritage, hit that subscribe button now. This is the untold story of the ultimate biological storm. To truly understand how we got here, we have to look back at history, because this nightmare is entirely a disaster of our own making. It all started in the year 1539. When the Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto stepped onto the shores of Florida. Along with his armor and horses, he brought 13 domestic pigs to serve as a walking food supply for his expedition. De Soto had no idea that those 13 farm animals would become the founding ancestors of America's greatest ecological crisis. Some of those pigs inevitably escaped into the wild, thriving in the dense woods and swamps. For centuries, they lived as simple feral hogs, destructive but manageable. Then came the early 20th century, and the timeline took a dangerous turn. Wealthy landowners wanted a new challenge, so they imported Eurasian wild boars from the forests of Germany and Russia to stock private hunting preserves. Naturally, these wild boars broke out of their enclosures and met the descendants of De Soto's pigs in the American wilderness. The crossbreeding that followed created a biological storm. This accidental hybridization fused the absolute best and worst traits of both species. From the domestic pig, this new creature inherited a jaw-dropping reproductive rate, capable of producing 2 litters a year with up to a dozen piglets each. From the Eurasian wild boar, it took a massive skeletal frame, extreme aggression, and an eerie adaptive intelligence. This was the birth of the modern super pig, a creature that is completely out of balance with our native ecosystem. Where are you watching this video from? Please tell us your country or city in the comments, and let's explore together. What makes this enemy so formidable isn't just their size, it is the terrifying way they are organized. They don't roam around as mindless, solitary beasts. They operate in highly organized, female-led family units called sounders. At the center of every single sounder is an old, battle-tested matriarch. She is the brain of the operation, an absolute master of survival who has dodged hunters, outsmarted traps, and memorized every square inch of her territory. This matriarch acts as a teacher, passing down a collective memory to her daughters and grandchildren. If she encounters a cage trap and barely escapes with her life, she will actively steer her entire family away from anything resembling a trap for the rest of her days. She teaches the young ones how to vanish when they hear the rumble of an all-terrain vehicle and where to find water during a brutal summer drought. It is a generational transfer of intelligence, meaning that every year we fight them, the survival skills of the next generation only double. On top of this collective intellect, nature has equipped these animals with a physical toolkit that reads like a blueprint for an industrial bulldozer. As a boar matures, it develops a thick layer of dense, fibrous cartilage over its shoulders and ribs, known to biologists as a shield. This tissue becomes so tough and dense that it can literally deflect buckshot from a shotgun or absorb the impact of a direct collision. Their snout is practically a solid block of bone and muscle, sharp and incredibly powerful. With that nose, a super pig can easily dig up asphalt, lift heavy cattle gates right off their hinges, and plow through frozen soil to reach roots and grubs. Their sense of smell is nothing short of legendary. A sounder can catch the scent of fermenting corn or buried sweet potatoes from miles away, even if the food is buried 3 feet beneath the hard-packed earth. They hear everything, they smell everything, and they have the muscle to tear through whatever stands between them and a meal. We aren't dealing with a simple nuisance animal anymore. We are facing a highly organized, heavily armored, deeply intelligent force of nature that knows our land just as well as we do, and they are using that knowledge to systematically take it over. For decades, our immediate American instinct when facing a threat on the land was simple. Grab a rifle, call up some neighbors, and hunt them down. It's the traditional way we've always handled predators. When the hog problem started blowing up, landowners spent millions of dollars on high-powered firearms, specialized tracking hounds, and even went as far as hiring professional marksmen in helicopters to rain down gunfire from the sky. It felt like a war we were winning at first. You'd look at a truck bed full of harvested hogs and think you were making a dent. But looking back, that aggressive approach was our first catastrophic mistake. We were playing right into their hands, using blunt force against an enemy that adapts at lightning speed. You see, traditional hunting completely backfired on us. When a group of hunters enters the woods with guns blaring, they usually only eliminate the slowest, the weakest, or the young, inexperienced piglets. The smart ones, especially that old matriarch leading the sounder, escape into the deep brush. And they don't just run, they learn. Those survivors immediately associated the daylight and the sound of a gunshot with absolute death. In a matter of weeks, entire populations changed their entire behavioral patterns. They became strictly nocturnal, shifting their feeding schedules to the pitch-black hours between midnight and dawn. They turned into ghosts. To make matters worse, the pressure forced these massive sounders to splinter into smaller, hyper-vigilant groups. Instead of dealing with one large herd, farmers suddenly found themselves chasing a dozen tiny, invisible factions scattered across thousands of acres, making total eradication nearly impossible. Have you or anyone in your family ever had to deal with these destructive animals on your own property? Drop a comment below and tell me what methods you tried, because as many American landowners found out, brute force just doesn't cut it. When the guns failed, frustrated farmers turned to fortification, spending thousands of dollars out of their own pockets to build what looked like military-grade defenses. They put up heavy-duty woven wire fences and ran high-voltage electric lines along the perimeters of their crops. But to a 300-pound super pig, those expensive barriers were nothing more than a temporary inconvenience. Remember, these animals possess a snout that functions like a steel plow. They would walk the fence line for miles, testing it patiently until they found a single loose clip or a soft patch of dirt. Once a weakness was spotted, they would wedge their powerful heads beneath the wire and literally lift the heavy metal gates right off their hinges. If the fence was too tight to lift, they simply used those bulldozer noses to excavate deep tunnels right underneath the concrete footings, leading the entire family into the cornfields anyway. The desperation reached a boiling point in rural Texas, where a group of exhausted farmers decided to try something radical. They pooled their money together and hired heavy machinery operators to dig massive, deep trenches all along the edges of their property lines. We are talking about deep defensive moats, roughly 10 feet wide and 7 feet deep, designed to stop any land animal in its tracks. It was a massive financial gamble, and it ended in pure heartbreak. When the heavy autumn rains arrived, those enormous trenches turned into giant traps for the farmers themselves. The rushing water caused severe soil erosion, washing away acres of valuable topsoil and destabilizing the very foundations of the farm roads. And the worst part? Hogs are actually phenomenal, powerful swimmers. The mud and water didn't stop them for a second. Farmers would stand on their porches in the morning only to see hog tracks leading straight down into the muddy trenches, up the other side, and directly into the ruined fields. When you step back and look at this entire cycle, the truth is deeply humbling. For over 30 years, our reliance on muscle, weapon technology, and sheer force didn't solve the crisis. It actually accelerated it. By constantly attacking them with random gunfire and poorly planned traps, we unknowingly acted as a force of natural selection. We systematically weeded out the foolish hogs and left only the most genius, resilient, and adaptive individuals alive to breed. We weren't clearing the land. We were running a brutal boot camp, training the next generation of super hogs to become ultimate survivalists. After years of bleeding money and chasing ghosts in the dark, American landowners finally arrived at a profound turning point. We had to face the cold, hard truth. You cannot outgun an enemy that outsmarts you. If we wanted to save our land and our legacy, we had to lay down the rifles, swallow our pride, and replace raw muscle with pure patience and psychological understanding. The breakthrough didn't come from developing a bigger weapon. It came from a revolution in strategy called whole sounder removal, executed through a revolutionary system known as the smart drop trap. The golden rule of this new mindset is simple yet absolute. You catch every single member of the herd at the exact same time, or you don't drop the trap at all. There is no middle ground. In this game, if you build a trap and leave even one solitary hog behind, that survivor instantly receives the ultimate education in human deception. They become what farmers call a survival graduate. That educated hog will never step foot inside a metal enclosure again, and worse, they will spend the rest of their life steering their offspring away from our traps. To win this war, we had to stop acting like desperate hunters and start thinking like master strategists. We had to outweight them. This realization birthed a brilliant psychological tactic called the safe restaurant concept. For generations, traditional trapping meant trying to hide a small cage in the brush, camouflaging it with leaves, and hoping a hog would wander in. The super pig always saw right through it. The new strategy flipped that entirely on its head. Instead of hiding, farmers began walking right into the heart of hog territory and openly erecting a massive, heavy-duty circular steel corral. It isn't hidden at all. It stands out boldly in the clearing. But here is the genius part. The massive gate is rigged to stay wide open, suspended high in the air. Every single night, the farmer scatters gallons of fermented corn, a scent that drives these animals absolutely wild, directly inside the open ring. During the first week, the old matriarch leads her family to the edge of the clearing. She smells the intoxicating bait, but she sees the giant steel ring and senses danger. She forces the entire herd to wait in the shadows while she sends a few young, reckless piglets inside to test the waters. The young ones eat their fill and wander back out completely unharmed. The farmer watches all of this unfolding on a live feed, but he doesn't move a muscle. He resists every urge to rush out. By the second week, the old matriarch notices that the free food is always there, and no harm ever comes to her family. Slowly, her intense suspicion gives way to a false sense of security. She begins leading more of the adults into the circle. Day after day, the farmer continues to feed them, deliberately conditioning the herd to view this giant steel ring not as a lethal threat, but as the safest, most reliable restaurant in the entire county. The farmer is actively building trust with a wild predator, waiting until the very last hesitant hog finally drops its guard. This shift in strategy has completely transformed the identity of the American farmer. They are no longer exhausted working men stumbling through freezing swamps at 2 o'clock in the morning, waving flashlights and wasting ammunition. Today, the modern farmer operates like a high-tech intelligence officer. They utilize cellular, infrared trail cameras equipped with advanced artificial intelligence that monitors the trap site 24 hours a day. When the sounder finally arrives in the dead of night, the farmer doesn't have to be anywhere near the field. Instead, a silent notification pings their smartphone while they are sitting comfortably in their living room chair, sipping a warm cup of coffee. They open an app and look at a crystal-clear, real-time video feed of the trap interior. They can sit back calmly and literally count every snout on the screen, comparing the head count to the data they've gathered over weeks of scouting. They know exactly how many hogs belong to that specific family. They sit in the dark, completely invisible, watching the enemy piece by piece walk into the trap, waiting patiently for that one perfect, definitive moment of total vulnerability. Then comes the night when all that patience finally pays off. Picture a pitch-black evening out in the country, the kind of night where there is no moon and you cannot see your hand in front of your face. Out in the clearing, the only thing active is the infrared eye of the camera, silently broadcasting to a smartphone miles away. On that screen, 30 wild hogs, the entire family unit, including that brilliant, cautious old matriarch, have walked right into the center of the steel ring. They are completely relaxed, completely trusting, burying their noses in the bait. The farmer sits at his kitchen table, watching the live video feed. His heart is pounding in his chest, but he forces himself to take a slow, deep breath. He counts the snouts one last time to make absolutely sure. 30 out of 30. Not a single piglet is left outside the perimeter. With a steady finger, the farmer taps a single glowing button on his touchscreen labeled Activate. In a fraction of a second, an encrypted signal flies through the cellular network to the trap site. There is a sharp metallic crack as the heavy magnetic latches release, and in less than 0.8 seconds, the massive 2-ton steel netting slams flat to the ground. It happens so fast that the hogs don't even have time to look up from their food. There are no frantic gunshots echoing through the valley, no bloody chaos, and no dangerous high-speed chases through the brush. In less than one single tick of a clock, an entire multi-generational sounder is cleanly, humanely, and perfectly captured. It is a flawless victory achieved not through violence, but through pure intellect and strategic restraint. This revolutionary shift is exactly what saved folks like Jack, a 62-year-old generational farmer down in rural Texas. Just a year ago, Jack was staring ruin right in the face. The financial toll of the hog damage had gotten so bad that he was genuinely losing sleep, wondering if he would have to sell off pieces of his family land just to pay the bank. He had tried everything traditional: